I'm not here on my own today. Very excited because I'm here with Steve Kaufman. Hello.
Hi, Lindsay. Hi,
How
everyone.
are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine.
Excellent. And I'm glad we're very far away. So I'm glad that we've been able to find a time that works.
Yeah.
So I'm in the UK, you're in Vancouver, correct?
Actually, I'm not. I'm in Palm Springs, California. We go,
Oh.
my wife and I come down here when it starts raining in Vancouver. We come down here so we can see the sun. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but it's very pleasant. Very pleasant.
That sounds nice. Oh, that sounds much better than the weather. Actually, I say that the weather's been very warm here today, so I shouldn't complain too much. Okay, so I can see there's a lot of people in the chat already, so I will be in the chat with you. So if you have any questions, any comments that you want to ask Steve, we'll be kind of doing it quite casual as we go. But Steve, I'm going to hand over to you now to kick off and tell us all about LingQ and how to power up our language learning with LingQ.
Okay. So I think I should begin perhaps by explaining the sort of genesis of LingQ. I'm a firm believer, as many of you, those of you who know me know, I'm a firm believer in the importance of input and the importance of meaningful, compelling, comprehensible input. That it's through the input that we acquire the language. It's not because a teacher instructs us in the fine points of grammar. And a lot of what we absorb, we don't know quite how we absorb all of this stuff, why we start accumulating words, but it has a lot to do with how much we are able to read and listen. But there's more to it than that, obviously. So LingQ really is simply a place, like you have to keep people motivated. It has to be a pleasant experience. So it's a place to learn. It's a place that organizes all the different things you need in order to succeed in a way that we hope is pleasant. And if it's pleasant, people continue doing it. And if it's not pleasant, a lot of people stop doing it. So the whole idea is to make it convenient and pleasant so that people feel good about themselves and therefore they feel motivated to continue. And as long as they continue listening and reading and perhaps reviewing words and occasionally checking the rules of grammar to remind themselves or to discover something they hadn't noticed, as long as they keep doing this, they're going to learn. So LingQ is simply an environment, all right? So let me now maybe try and share the screen and go over, some of you may be new to LingQ, so I'll go over it. It's impossible to go over everything that's there. However, some of you may have specific questions and I'd be happy to answer those. But let's begin by sharing the screen here. So we will go into, let's see how this works. You are screen sharing. All right. Now I am learning Persian and Arabic. However, not many of your viewers probably can read Persian or Arabic, so I decided to use Spanish and maybe a little bit of French to show how the system works. Mostly I'm going to be on our web version, the browser version, but then I'm going to briefly show you the mobile version, because I think as many people use the mobile version as use the browser version. Remember too, you can use the browser version on your mobile device as well, but we have an app for mobile devices, and I will briefly demonstrate the app as well. So here we are in the library in Spanish, all right? So here you can see that you can click on this and you have a lot of other languages that you can learn. Now, these little numbers are the number of words that theoretically I know in these languages. So I don't know many words in English because I haven't studied English at LingQ. So the system can only keep track of your activities on the system. So I've been very active in Russian at LingQ. I have fairly active in Italian, Portuguese, Korean, Czech, Ukrainian, Romanian, and these are sort of an indication of where you are. This is your sort of passive vocabulary count, bearing in mind that it's done by the system. So therefore, the word run, runs, running, ran, those are 4 different words, because the system cannot distinguish if this is part of the word family run or not. So these numbers are going to be somewhat inflated for languages that are very inflected and less inflated for languages that are less inflected. But it's a milestone. It's an indication of how far along you are. But we're going to stay in Spanish. Now,
can I just interrupt? I have a little question.
Yes.
Can you learn any language on LingQ?
Well, probably no, because you could use a slot. Like if you go here, and I mean, we got Gujarati, Bulgarian, Esperanto, whatever. There's lots of languages. But if you wanted to learn, you know, we are adding Georgian, by the way. We add languages if people create content for us. And sort of the minimum is sort of 60. We have these mini stories. If we have 60 mini stories in a language, we add the language. Even as in the case of Bulgarian and Gujarati, where there's not a big demand for the language, if we have the content. Because if someone comes to Link and say pays $10 a month and expects to study Tibetan, and we have no content in Tibetan, and they can't find any content in Tibetan, then basically we're misleading them. So we really don't want to open up a language. Now, there are people who would use the slot for, say, Latin, which they don't intend to study, and they can try studying some other language there. It doesn't work very well. And also it messes up our Latin section, because then we end up with a lot of, you know, dictionary definitions that don't relate to that language. So we don't recommend people doing it. So the short answer is, if you're really interested in the language, get some people to create some content for us, and then we'll load up the language.
Okay, thank you.
But there are 34 languages, so there's a lot of languages there. Oh, wow. So if we look at the page here as it presents itself, it can be a little overwhelming for people. But, you know, a lot of things are overwhelming at first. If I was just looking at my Arabic grammar book, and the stuff that people try to explain to you up front, it's too much. You have to gradually get into something, play with it, discover a few things, ask a few questions, read the instructions again, and slowly you get used to how a system works. But here you see that in Spanish, I haven't been active in Spanish, so I haven't been achieving my daily goal. We can see here, I don't have a streak going. Nothing's happening. I have no known words, no links, no nothing. So I am not active in Spanish. I have in the past, on occasion, used Spanish to improve my Spanish. And so I have a total of 19,000 known words in Spanish. So if we look at the things you can do here, you can go look for a tutor. You can go to the community. Most people will not have admin. I have admin on my version, okay? And you can go to the library. So we're going to look first at the library. So we have a thing here called the lesson feed. And the lesson feed is simply what people have been studying. So if you follow people, Swiss Stephen here is a member, or J.R.D. King is a member, and you'll see what they have been studying. You may want to study one of those items. We also are able to go to newspapers where we scrape, as it's called, articles from newspapers, and these show up in the feed. And these are not, in a sense, it's basically as if we placed a link there, except instead of placing a link there, this is now integrated with the link system. So just to quickly go over the content, because in language learning, having interesting content is tremendously important. So you can go to the lesson feed, you can look for popular lessons. There are even sort of guided courses separated by, you know, level. You can browse the library. You can even go to the store and you'll find our friend. You recognize our friend?
Yes, I recognize. Sorry, I had to unmute myself, but yes.
Okay, so this is Ollie Richards' series. So in the store, you buy content because most of the content is free. It comes to us from various sources, but we also offer high quality material, which we sell. And so you buy the course. So I think that's enough. Oh, and you can also import. So this is important because as you progress in the language, you may find that the material, you know, although we have a tremendous amount of material in the library, maybe you want to do something else. But we have a tremendous variety of things in the library: podcast, news, business, entertainment, sports, technology. We have European Spanish, Latin American Spanish. But if for whatever reason you want to do something else, like I have in learning Polish, I have imported whole ebooks. So you can import the whole ebook and then buy the audiobook and And while you can't split the sound, I mean, it's too much work to split the sound up to match the book as it comes into LingQ. You can import newspaper articles, podcasts. I've been doing this in Arabic. I transcribe podcasts and import them. So you can import content. All right. Now, if you open up a lesson, let's say here, we open that up. It's advanced. All right. So here is this story or whatever it is. La Brújula Dorada. I don't know what it is. And we open it. Let's see here. And up it comes, and the system has to go through and see your known words and a whole bunch of stuff that tells you. So when you open it, I discovered that in my case, there are all these blue words are words that I have not previously seen at LingQ. And therefore, the system considers them new words. I may, in fact, know some of these words. Okay. The yellow words are words that I have previously encountered at LingQ. I may have forgotten the meaning. I may have forgotten that I ever saw them before, but the system knows that I have seen these before. So and the white words are words that I have at some time or other either not chosen to save, or I have studied them through flashcards or whatever, and they are now known. So all of the white words are known words. So this is page 1. Here you can see that you can page your way through. There's a total of 142 new words in this particular lesson. And there are 28 words that you have previously encountered and which you can review. And we'll show you that a little bit later. But if I look at atravesaron, okay, atravesaron. Okay, and you can turn off the text-to-speech or have it on, but I tend to have it on. So I click on it, I hear the text-to-speech, and then I choose. Now, 123 means that 123 other users of LingQ have chosen this as the meaning of the word. You can also go to other dictionaries. I personally like Context Reverso. Context Reverso has a verb conjugation dictionary. You can add more dictionaries, whichever dictionary you want. If you happen to be a German speaker or a Japanese speaker, you can add a dictionary that works for your language. So there's lots of different dictionaries that you can add. There's no end of dictionaries, but these are the dictionaries that I have. So I'm in, whoops. So atravesaron. Okay. Now, the next thing is once you open this atravesaron, now normally a translation would have appeared in there. I think I messed it up, but anyway, crossed. Okay. Sorry. Crossed. You can add, you can change the hint. You can put whatever you want in there. But you also see that this is now from atravesar. It's a verb. It's the pretérito perfecto simple. It's the third person. Okay. And so if this tells you, you can save one of these. This is sort of because you can tag stuff. You can tag any word or phrase that you save. You can tag it. You can tag it for subjunctive. You can tag it for medical terms. That enables you then to look up a list of these tagged items in your vocabulary section for sort of a concentrated review. But one of the other neat things is, okay, it identifies it as a verb. If you click on verb, you are taken to a grammar resource, Spanish verb tenses, because it's kind of useful, and you can look at different things if you want, but it's kind of useful to kind of review grammar from time to time. I find that it's very difficult to absorb grammar explanations up front, but that every so often you're curious, like what form of the verb is this, or why, or how, and therefore it's good to kind of review the grammar from time to time. So we now are able to identify, not in all languages, but in many languages, we are able to identify what part of speech and provide some grammar explanation. There is in every language, again, not in every language, but in a lot of languages, if you look at this sort of your picture here, your profile, there is a grammar guide. So, we have, in fact, we contracted with people to provide us with a grammar guide for most of our languages, maximum 6,000 words. So a concise grammar guide in, Greek or Dutch or whatever it might be. So that's kind of useful to know. So what the main task at LingQ is to go through and say, okay, Lira is a name. I don't want this name, so I ignore the word because I don't want Lira in my word count. Lira is a name. Lira is now a white word, but it's not added to my links.
Lira y su daimonion atravesaron.
I don't know what daimonion is, but I have the feeling that I'm not that interested in that either. So you can basically, or let's see, popular translations. Okay. Or you take it.
Lira y su daimonion atravesaron.
So now I have saved that whole phrase, which is the other, option. You can save words or phrases. So, for example, el comedor cuya luz se iba atenuando. Okay.
El comedor cuya luz se iba atenuando.
Cuya is kind of a useful, handy word to know. So you save the phrase.
El comedor cuya luz se iba atenuando.
So you can add a tag if you want. Maybe, you might want to tag, say, relative pronoun or something. Depending how grammatical you are, you can do that, all right? So you add tags. So you go through atenuando, I know this word.
Mantenerse.
Mantenerse, I know this word. Destellaban, flash. That's kind of, I want that word. If the way I'm set up, if I simply go on to the next one, it'll save it. So using the arrow keys, you can automatically move to the next blue word. Comensales, I'll take that. So you take that. You can hit enter, or you can go press your cursor on it. Los retratos.
Retratos.
Yeah, retratos. We need to be reminded that retrato is a portrait. It's not a retired person, for example. So I can just hit enter, and I've got
retratos.
Antiguos rectores is like the English word rector. I know that word, so I'm not going to bother saving it. I can hit K for known, for example. That turns it into white. So there are a number of little keystrokes like that you can use. The objective is to go through the text. Now, if I hit this little arrow here, I get to review these.
Lira y su daimonion atravesaron.
Okay. So, and because my own view of flashcards is that they are simply a concentrated exposure to the language. I don't like racking my brain, and therefore I put all the information on the front of the flashcard. So all I've done is I've isolated 4 or 5 items in the page that I don't feel comfortable or confident of, and therefore I review them in a concentrated manner before moving on to the next page. But I don't force myself to try to remember anything. I'm not a big fan of forcing myself to try to remember anything. I just find it annoying and not very effective. But here you can, for example, you have different settings. So I'm in the review area. I can choose, for example, I've avoided the closed tests. I've avoided dictation. Dictation can be very effective, but it's more time consuming. I can have multiple choice, not have multiple choice, cards per session. So there's a number of things that I can do. Similarly, there are settings for the reader area, dictionary languages, text size. I can choose my text-to-speech accent, for example, Latin American, Spanish, whatever I want. So there are a number of settings. Similarly, with the home setting, I can choose to include a guided course, European Spanish. There are a number of things, library topics. So again, I can't get into all of these details or I'll be forever. But let's just say that there are a lot of settings.
Estrado.
And people should familiarize themselves with those. I'm now on the next page. So I go through the same thing again. Go through, and if I see, sillones, armchairs, sillones, I think I know that. So I can now move this along. It's a status 1 word because that's what happens the first time you change it to, yellow. But you might feel more comfortable. Not totally comfortable, but you might manually move it to a status 3. Once it's a status 4, it's no. Okay. Status 4 is known, but it still reviews in your SRS feed, in 30 days. But if you give it a tick, you won't see it again. It's gone. Insofar as regularly reappearing when you're reviewing them. Again,
Steve, just to confirm that then, I just want to fix your screen there. So you decide yourself how confident you feel about a word, and then it will go through the SRS system on the flashcards. Is that correct?
That is to say, the status determines how frequently they reappear in your SRS feed. When you go through your flashcards, if you get one right twice, it also moves along in status.
Okay, so you're not always necessarily being the one to decide. Sometimes it will pick it for you.
However, I must say that in my own case, because I don't do a lot of flashcarding, because I just find that, I have so many thousands of words that I'm saving, that if I did, I would spend all my time on flashcards. Yeah. So therefore, I do a lot of reading. And I just find that over time, as I read, more and more of these yellow words, I know them. And so, or I feel more confident about them. And part of my motivation as I look at this screen, I just like to get it lighter in color. I like to get it whiter. I like to get it into a lighter tone of yellow. And so I kind of move things along. And I would say most of the words that some words just disappear. So I must have gone through flashcards or something that I know them. But I find that very often I simply manually move them along while reading. You can also manually move them along in the vocabulary section. But again, the vocabulary section, I just find that everything that takes me away from listening and reading, I'm less motivated to do. That's me, the learner. Now, other people may be different, and they may spend more time in the vocabulary section.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So just some other things. Again, I don't know quite what the best thing. So I could go through the flashcards in more detail, but it's fairly straightforward. Most people know what a closed test is, what a flashcard is, what a multiple choice is. Dictation, you hear the phrase or the word, and that can be a very useful thing to do, is to go in and deliberately save a whole bunch of phrases in a page, let's say. If I were to go through this page and save 10 phrases, and then go and do my flashcards and set it only to dictation. Then I would have to hear those phrases in Spanish, text to speech, mind you, and I would have to write them out. I would have to type them in, because that's what dictation is. You hear it. So if let's just do that for now. Let's say we go here.
Se detuvo.
Okay, that's multiple choice. But let's say that we go in there, review settings, and we don't want to do flashcards. We don't want to do reverse flashcards. We don't want to do multiple choice. We just want to do dictation.
Se detuvo.
Close. Okay, so now.
Se detuvo.
Se detuvo. Okay, so now I have to type in se detuvo. And it has these little special keys where, the umlaut and the accent and the ñ and stuff like that to help us along. So we submit. Hey, I got it right. Okay, next.
Estrado.
Estrado. Estrado. Okay, let's see what happens. So this is another way. So with the review, it's important. You can set it up to do whatever you want. You can just do closed tests. You can just do flashcards. But the dictation, especially when I was learning Greek and Arabic, I found it very useful because it's so hard to get used to the new writing system. So just focusing on, dictation was very effective. But then again, it's also very good sometimes to have all five, because variety is good. Randomness is good. So you don't get bored doing the same thing. There's different stuff coming at you. Okay, getting back to our lesson page here. So this happens to be, this is my lesson feed in Spanish. So let's just go over to, what are we at? Let's see. So we are in Spanish. Let's go to French, just to show you that in French, again, I don't have many words here in French, but in fact, I know French quite well. I just haven't studied it here. So here, and the other thing is you can set, it always defaults to my lessons for me, because I set it to default to my lessons. but I can have it default to wherever I want, okay? I can have it default to vocabulary or to playlist, so that every time I open this up, it'll default to wherever I want it to be. I personally find it useful to default to my lessons. Close. One of the things so therefore, yeah, so I could open any of these and start studying them. If I go to the library, sometimes it's interesting to see what have people been studying, because that can be motivating too. Oh, so-and-so has been doing Victor Hugo or Le Mannequin Piece or whatever it is, and I might want to study one of those lessons. And I see right away that this lesson, for me, has 28% new words. Now, that's not realistic, because in fact, I know French very well. I know most of those words, but I haven't been doing it at LingQ, right? So this one is 41%. But for someone who has been studying hard at LingQ, if that number is, 10% new words, 15, that's comfortable. Whereas 40% new words might be too difficult. So they can go in and find something with a lower percentage of new words to study. I also want to mention the fact that the playlist is quite useful. The playlist, and I don't have anything obviously much in French, but if I were to show you, let's have a look here. If I go to my Farsi here, and I look at, let's see, if I look at, okay, I can add, okay, has already been added to playlist. But if I look at my, let's see here, back to lessons. And if I look at my, no, I don't want to repair my streak, go away. If I go to playlist, you will see that I have lots of items on my playlist, lots. And this is, the playlist automatically shows up on all your devices. So as you're studying, you can save the sound file to a playlist, so that if I have my iPhone with me, I've always got these lessons to listen to. And if I'm listening to one and I'm a little bit confused, quickly get to the text to read, to make sure that I understand what I'm listening to. So the playlist is very important. It also tells you how many times you have listened to these items. So I have listened to some of these 15, 18 times. If I go back to my earlier ones, like in here, story 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've listened to 30 or 40 times. So it also helps track your listening, because we do have these statistics. You know, I'm wandering a bit because I want to finish at 9:30 and then turn it over to questions. Otherwise, we'll go forever here. But statistics are key, because statistics keep you motivated. And so if I look at sort of my profile, it's very interesting. So that, okay, in my Persian, okay, I can look at the last 7 days, but I can also look at all time. So here's a history of my engagement with Persian. And these are my known words, but I can also look at, the amount that I've listening. And the listening tracks based on when you listen to the lesson while studying the lesson, but it also tracks the listening you do on your iPhone or mobile device. And so I see that, I did a little bit of sort of listening here back in the summer when I first bought a book, and I bought some material. And then I didn't do anything as I was preparing to go to Morocco. So I was focusing on Arabic. And then since the beginning of the year, when I returned from Morocco, I have been doing both Persian and Arabic. And so all of a sudden, my numbers are up. If I look at other languages that I have learned, for example, the one that I've done the longest is Russian. And if I look at, for example, links created, which is a good indicator of your level of activity, I see that I was very active in 2007, and then less and less active, of course, as you go along. Or another, I think, interesting one is the known words, where, again, I find that you pick up speed after a while. So I struggle, and then I start really adding a lot of known words. I'm not at that stage in Persian and Arabic, but, and for someone who's an English speaker, we're doing Spanish or French, there's so many words that are quickly recognized that the growth in the known words is actually quite rapid. Anyway, so those are things you can do. You can go to your profile and see your history in the language. But let's get back now to our Spanish page. Very quickly, tutors. If you want a tutor, you can look up and choose one. And I'm not going to go through the process of scheduling a session with a tutor, but they can set their own prices and you can talk to them. My activities shows that if you have anything scheduled, it'll show up here. The community takes you to the forum. You know, I can go on for a long time. I think I should stop it there and let people ask questions. And so should I leave the share screen up for now?
Feel free to bring it back to your face so we can.
Okay. All right.
See you, we can chat. I am very excited by those statistics. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff, so that's cool. I like that.
Okay, stop sharing. Yeah. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, the statistics are cool because, and you can look at what other people are doing. But more than that, that graphic representation of your level of activity over the last month, over 6 months, and like you forget, when did I start studying Czech? When was I most active in Czech? When was I adding the most words? And it's just tremendously motivating. It is.
Like, I can't imagine if I had, was that going back to 2007? Is that the earliest that you had it on there?
Yeah. Well, Russian is the first one I did. Yeah. I mean, Korean I was fairly early too, but I think Russian is the earliest. Yeah.
See, I can't imagine if I had like a record of all the contact I'd had with all my languages. I'd feel so much more confident as well about the idea of, you know what, I am good at this. I have spent the time on this. That's so cool.
It is cool, and it's very interesting, the sort of known words thing. So I was doing the other day, I had a little workshop on it, and you know, you can actually learn a lot of words if you do a lot of listening and reading. You learn a lot of words, but obviously, if you are a Spanish speaker learning Portuguese, I mean, you automatically, immediately got this massive vocabulary, right? Even when I learned Romanian, I learned 20,000 words in a month because 70% of the words are like Italian. Wow. On the other hand, with Greek or with Arabic or with Persian, it's a lot slower, obviously. But you pick up speed because first of all, there's a lot of words that are forms of other words, and you start to understand how the language works, and you understand more and more of the context, and so that growth in your vocabulary starts to accelerate, and you can then see that graphically, and then it peaks at a certain point, and then it dies off a little bit because you're not acquiring as many new words. Obviously, you're dealing with words of lower and lower frequency all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to go to the questions. I've got a few that I saved from earlier. And this actually links to what you were just talking about, Spanish and Portuguese. So Dennis said, I speak French at an advanced level, German intermediate, and Spanish at a beginner to intermediate level. I'm finding watching videos where a French speaker is teaching Spanish or vice versa helps me improve. What are your thoughts on using your strongest foreign language to learn another?
Well, you know, several thoughts. First of all, when I learn another, a new language, my focus is the new language. So I'm sort of in the new language. If I use a dictionary, I'm in and out of that dictionary as quickly as I can be. I just want to get back to the text so that I get used to making meaning out of the target language. But it's true that if you may have seen that I have Russian on as one of my other dictionary languages. It's fun to see the meaning in another language. It can sometimes have a slightly different nuance. And of course, any exposure to a language that you've already studied is going to reinforce. Like, it may only be a grain of sand, but it's a small degree of reinforcement. So as long as what you see, any explanation is clear to you, then I think it's a good thing to do. If it takes you to a language that you don't know very well and the explanation is not clear, and now you're looking up words in that language, to me, that's a distraction from the target language. But if what you get in terms of a translation or an explanation is clear in your second or third language, I think it's in many ways a very good thing to do.
So it has to be strong enough to understand everything, so you're not having to look up twice. Great.
Yeah.
Cool. And Sue's asked, is Hungarian close to being added on LingQ?
We have one person volunteered and has translated 15 stories and submitted audio samples, which I listened to, and they were good. And it's now in the hands of our virtual assistant, Zoran, who lives somewhere in Serbia. And he'll be working with this person and whoever else is collaborating with him or her. And we should have them, but I can't give you a deadline. I can't give you it.
In the pipeline. In the pipeline. That's good enough. Kevin asks, I know we can add our own materials, but can we as teachers create materials for our students and share with them via LingQ?
Okay, absolutely. For example, one of my favorite type of content in Arabic and Farsi, where kind of I'm sort of in between. The beginning material is boring for me now, and the authentic material is too difficult. I mean, I plow my way through it, but it's too difficult. When I have my lessons with my tutors in Persian and in Arabic, I get back from them a report that contains a lot of phrases and words that I had trouble using. Either that she explained to me, or that I used incorrectly, or I was looking for a word and she provided the word. So then I get this with a 5-minute audio recording to go with it. And I can go, conversation reports is a course. So I go to that. I can see all of my tutor sessions going back however many months, 6 months, 8 months, and I can go through them again and again and again. So this is content, obviously, that has been created together with my tutor. But not only the tutor, any member can create content. I've had people record their blogs and put them up. We encourage people to do that. There's a fellow in Egypt who did a blog on Arabic history and culture. Unfortunately, too difficult for me. But obviously, if we can get tutors or other members, native speakers, all we require is audio and text. And very often, if it's a natural conversation, which is then transcribed, that's the best kind of intermediate learning material, rather than, okay, you can record Wikipedia in Romanian, but it's not as good as a natural conversation, which is then transcribed. So we encourage people to do that. But you can't share stuff in the library that you don't have the rights to. So that's the other caveat, right? So if you're a teacher, for example, if you have the rights to something, you can limit that to your group. Like we can set it up so that only your group can access that. But we can't make available in our library material for which there are copyright issues.
Okay.
But you can use anything you want for yourself. Anything you want for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So if you were a teacher and you created it yourself from scratch, that right, you could share within your own group, but also that would be able to share publicly because you'd have the rights to that, right?
Decide, like we would have to go. If you said, okay, I'm a teacher, I have a group of 20 students, I have created this, but I only want to share it with them. We set that up as a classroom environment. They are the only ones who have access to that. On the other hand, if you're happy to share it with everyone in the library, that's your choice. We have people who have language teaching sites who will share 10 lessons with us in order to entice people back to their website where there are additional exercises and other things. So there's a number of reasons or ways in which people share content.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Let me see. Yes, that's about multiple languages, which we've discussed a little bit already. Let me just check because there were a few more over here. Okay, so Mina asks, the listening part, is it the texts read or do you have other listening materials as well? I'm asking because I want to know for a language like Persian that the written form is different to the spoken one. Is there any material just for practicing the spoken form?
Yeah, one of the delights of Persian is this difference between the spoken and the written form. I would say that our mini stories are in the written form. So they are recorded versions of the written form. We have, my tutor, Rana, has also created mini stories in the spoken form. If you like, there are other resources like Persian Online, which I can't share with others, but anyone learning Persian could go there and import it into LingQ, as I have done. And a lot of that is in the spoken form. So, but we have a whole series, actually, not only Rana's, we have another, we had a person and his girlfriend, sister, I don't know. They also created a bunch of conversations in conversational Persian. So we have both. We should probably put some tags in there so that you can find the one or the other. But I must admit, personally, I'm not bothered by it. If I hear it, I know it's the written form or it's the spoken form. Yeah, we have both. Simple answer.
Cool. Ron says, I've been on LingQ for a while, learning Latin. My next project will be classical Greek. Wow. I certainly do not want to follow the usual approach, grammar, and more grammar, and not really learning. Do you have any thoughts on how to approach classical Greek?
I know nothing about it. What I know, the little bit that I know suggests that there's a lot of dispute about how classical Greek was pronounced. Unlike Latin, where there seems to be some consensus on how it was pronounced. Since our system is based on listening and reading, we wouldn't be able to accommodate the listening part. But if I were doing it, I would find e-texts of classical Greek and import it into the Greek slot at LingQ. So at least you can read it there. And you'd have to ask us to add, if it requires an extra dictionary for classical Greek, we probably could add that classical dictionary.
Excellent. Okay. And oh yeah, a question from Dennis, who has already the $10 a month version of LingQ. Is that the level? Does that give the highest functionality of LingQ?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's only one option. There's no
to reduce your cost and make that commitment for a 6-month or a 1-year exposure.
And that's the way to reduce.
There is no. Well, the other thing you can do is, if you have a tutor, you have to pay the tutor. All right, but we have not yet, and we've thought about, maybe we should have some system which includes, paid content like Ollie Richards material or stuff from. I mean, there are other people who want to be paid, and so you'd have a higher, category where you would get this premium content and some access to tutors. But we've never done anything on it. It's basically the $10 a month, or it's discounted if you commit to a 6-month or a 1-year.
Okay, so it's nice and simple. I like that.
I'm not on top of everything that happens at LingQ all the time. I do believe we raised our monthly, but grandfathered for existing members. But if you buy the 6-month package, then of course you end up saving again. So you don't end up paying more. But I think for those people who are paying by the month, it's no longer 10. It's might be 13 or something. I don't know. I don't want to get into trouble here. I don't want to get into trouble. I'm not on top of it.
So it might not be exactly 10. I think when I checked earlier, it put it into UK money. It came out as $11.99 in UK pounds.
Okay, so I think it's time. And we did increase it to $13 US. But the idea there is you should, if you're going to learn a language, commit to at least 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, you can try it for 1 month. If you don't like it, fine. But if you do like it, commit to 6 months, and then you're back to where you were.
I think it's the way to see results and to see those statistics as well.
Yeah. Well,
a little question here. We're almost done. I want to give you some time to get ready for your next session that you've got going on. But I don't think we're going to get to all the questions, but here's one about LingQ specifically. So I want to ask this from Dennis. Does LingQ have a glossary of who is providing the text for LingQ? So for example, I see that Ollie Richards has some material on LingQ in one language. Yeah. So do you have a glossary of the authors that are sharing?
Yeah, again, I should know these things better. But if we go to, let's have a look here. Go to the library and, okay. So search, I think there is, library, browse library. New share, no, there was. So you can set the level of difficulty. There was somewhere, I should know this, where you can set a filter by the provider. But in any case, let's see, we put in Ollie there and see what happens. Ollie Richards shows up. So you could put someone's name in there. I can't on the fly here. Filters. So there is somewhere, but unfortunately, I don't know where it is, where you can see the list of providers.
So which one did I skip up here? Oh yeah, there was a question from Anne. Can you walk through the steps to upload the lyrics of a French song? So if you had content yourself, is the upload process quite simple?
Okay, so there's two scenarios there. First, I would say, okay, should I show that on the screen? Okay, so we will do that. Screen share and share. So this, you've got to get to the import. There's two ways of doing it. You can get the LingQ extension for your browser. That's one way of importing things. Or you go to the import, which you can do here, or you can do from the library. But let's say you click here, and you can import a lesson. There was also import an ebook. There's a number of things you can import. Okay, so you come to this page. So first of all, we typically have on the import page a list of all the different places where you can go and find content. Okay, so Audria, CNN, Cervantes Virtual, whatever it might be. But let's say that you have a song. So you can either type the song here, or what usually happens is if I go to, you know, El Mundo, whoops. So any text, El Mundo, which is a newspaper in Spain, Diario Online. So you get an article here. Woof, let's see. And so you simply copy and paste. So you, whoops. So here, let's say that I take that, grab it, copy, and then I go to wherever I was here, and then I just put it in here. I've now put the text in, right? The music of the song, you should have it as an MP3 file, park it in your desktop or somewhere, and you just click upload audio file, and then the URL of that song or the file will show up here. Okay, you're looking perplexed? I can't hear you, by the way. You sound
sorry. I was just in the chat. I was just trying to check the next question.
Okay, no. So you upload the audio, you have to give it a title, something like that, and then you save it or save and open. Oh, and you also have to choose a course. So you might put this in, create a course called Spanish Songs. Another thing you can do is if you go to YouTube, Spanish Songs, okay. So if you have a YouTube song that has closed captions, and just don't want to take forever here, but again, I'm not so smart at doing all this stuff, but if it has closed captions, you turn on the closed captions, and while that is playing, you click on your extension, your browser extension, and then it will open up as a lesson in LingQ. So you will have in LingQ, you will have the text of the song, the text of the closed captions, because that whatever's in the closed captions will show up as text. The video shows up in video, and you can now download the song to your playlist. So you could study the song, you could watch the video, and then afterwards, while you're out walking the dog, you can listen to it. So the Chrome extension is one way, or simply importing is another way. You know what, with the time, I have run out of time to demonstrate. I just realized I was going to demonstrate on the mobile, but the mobile app is very similar. So I don't think it's necessary to demonstrate that. So I think I'll get back out of sharing screen. I hope that answers the question.
That does, yeah, thank you. I'm just like, my mind is full of all the things now to import, like, oh, and the idea, so you group them then into courses, which is like you have one there for organize.
Yeah, I mean, we call them courses, but you've got to organize it somehow or you'll never find them again. And you can set your reader to look up lessons or to look up courses. But the amount of content just grows exponentially. So unless you have lessons or something, I would say, or if you like a particular singer, Julio Iglesias, so I would create a course of Julio Iglesias. Create a course so that you can get to the course, and then you can, you know, drill into that course and find the lessons there.
Cool. Okay. One final question then. So it's come through as anonymous. As a very early beginner, is it fine to study lessons with very high unknown word percentages?
Well, obviously, when you start in a language as a beginner, it's 100% unknown words. So obviously, you have to start at that point. What my strategy is to start with lessons that are no more than 1 minute long, like 30 seconds to 1 minute long. I fight my way through the text, looking up all the words. Obviously, if I'm an English speaker learning Spanish, there's a lot of words that I will recognize. If I'm learning Arabic, there's none. And I go through that, and I listen several times, and I review, and I do more sort of reviewing and flashcards and stuff, and dictation and stuff at the beginning, because everything is so new to me. But I don't wait until I 100% master that first lesson before I move on to the second, because I won't master it. Everything is too fuzzy. And I go 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and then back to 1. And eventually, you know, the fog starts to lift. But obviously, you're going to begin with more difficult content. Now, in my own case, I have found that our mini stories, which actually would be considered intermediate 1. I start with them in Arabic, in Persian, in all of these languages, and I have never progressed as quickly as I do now. And because those stories are built in such a way that the vocabulary repeats about 3 times, 4 times in the story. And all of the mini stories focus on the most common verbs in the language. If you have verbs, you can say stuff. Nouns, names of things, it's less important. Names of colors, whatever, it doesn't matter. Verbs, go, come, need, say, give, take, want. These are so important. And so these stories, the first 20 stories are in the present tense. Thereafter, they're in any tense. And even that doesn't really matter. It's not obvious that the present tense is easier than the past tense. It's just that there's only one tense. And so I found that these, which would be considered somewhat more challenging than the normal starting material, has worked fine for me. So, but I think what's important is the length and the amount of repetition. If you have a story, a beginner story, and the words only appear once, it's just not going to do it. You want to have beginner material where the same vocabulary repeats and repeats and repeats within that story. And then, so on that basis, I'd certainly recommend, well, you can't start with anything less than 100% unknown words if the language is new to you. So that's a given, right?
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, there's many stories. I'm very, very grateful that you joined us today. I had no idea, honestly, how powerful LingQ really is. So thank you for sharing everything.
Oh, well, thank you. I much appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the next Polyglot conference where we'll get together again.
Yes, looking forward to it. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us, and thanks for watching as well if you're on the recording.
Thank you to everyone.